A big defeat for President Trump. Breaking news in our money lead. A federal appeals court has just ruled against President Trump's sweeping global tariffs, saying he unlawfully leaned on emergency powers to impose tariffs. President Trump just reacted to the tariff ruling, saying that all tariffs are still in effect. He called the appeals court highly partisan and said that the United States Supreme Court was going to get involved. Let's bring in Neil Katyal. He represents some of the plaintiffs in this case. He's also the former acting U.S. Solicitor General for President Obama. Neil, your reaction to the ruling, your reaction to President Trump seeming to suggest that he's going to appeal this to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Well, we're just studying the ruling. I had the privilege of arguing it on behalf of the Liberty Justice Center and a group of private plaintiffs, Jake. And I guess I'd start by saying I don't view this as you started by saying it's a defeat for President Trump. I think the way to think about it is it's a win for the American Constitution, that our founders basically said that decisions that are major over things like taxation have to be done by the Congress, not by the president and the stroke of his pen. And the idea, as President Trump says, that this is like some highly partisan court or something. I mean, the senior most judge in the majority to rule against Donald Trump was a guy appointed by President Bush, Judge Lurie. So I don't buy that whatsoever. I think the court overwhelmingly today in a 7-4 decision rejected President Trump's notion that he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and have said, no, the Constitution imposes limits. And one really important limit, Mr. President, is you're not allowed to tariff on your own.
President Trump also said in that Truth Social post that he thinks tariffs are the best tool to help American workers and support companies. Your clients whom we interviewed the ones who are wine sellers in Manhattan. They disagree very strongly.
Exactly. So they do disagree and, do think that the tariffs are harmful. But I think what the court today said is, look, if the president thinks these tariffs are so important, and today I guess he said they're going to destroy the country if you don't have the tariffs, then make that case to Congress. That's what every president has done before him. Indeed, it's what Donald Trump did the first time around when he was president. When he was in his first administration, he went to Congress and tried to ask for tariff authority. And what they say, Jake? They said no. And so if this is so important, he's got, the Congress is controlled by the Republican Party. That's his party. Go make the case there. But don't distort the Constitution in the process. And it's always, I think a fraught, heady thing when you're going in a court and saying the president did something illegal. You only want to do so in the rarest and gravest of circumstances. But Jake, as we looked at this case, that is this situation. You've got the president who's imposed the largest tax increase on American consumers since 1993 in the form of these tariffs. That's according to the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. And he did it without Congress saying one word. That is not our constitutional structure.
All right, Neil Katyal, I guess you're going to gear up for a Supreme Court fight? I mean, ultimately, if he's going to appeal this to the U.S. Supreme Court, that court, at the very least, in the most charitable description I can say, they're inclined to hear his arguments, don't you think?
Well, they should, of course, hear his arguments. He's the president, and he's asserting these things. And to the extent he continues to believe them, absolutely should make those arguments. My hope is that if he does see these tariffs as so important, he should go to the Congress and not try and run to the courts to do what he can't get done through the legislative process. If he goes to the Supreme Court, we will be absolutely ready, and we are confident that the Supreme Court will hear our arguments and take them in good measure.